to the show. I'm your host, Terry Covey, and this is the Living Above the Noise podcast, where we're reclaiming family life for the intentional Christian mom. Did you know that you can actually live above the noise in the world around you? You can't escape it, but you can live above it. I've been mom for over 40 years, raising 10 adults, and now grandmama to 23. I've been married 43 years and homeschooled for 30, so I have lots of hard-won lessons to help you find joy in this tiring and oftentimes confusing job of being mom. I believe we're called to live out the Word of God, and that's why I'm here, to help you think and live biblically, and offer you inspiration to step into your life as wife, mom, and home manager with intention, confidence, and trust. You're leaving a legacy, so stand tall, mamas. You can do this. Now let's get to it. Well, welcome back after all the busyness of the holidays and the start of a new year. You know, something I've thought about in recent weeks is this. Maybe, just maybe, staying so busy with all the holiday preparations and activities from November all the way through December and into January, maybe that's the reason we value all the possibilities at the start of a new year. We can finally move into something other than celebrating and holidays and presents and food. We laugh and tell jokes about all the New Year's resolutions, the diets, and the goals for the new year. But after all the hubbub of the holidays, when that ball reaches the top of a new year, I think we're all ready to move into our own life and our own goals. But at the same time, I know for me, I really love that slow down week or two at the beginning of the new year where I get to take time to revisit my planning courses, my methods, my planner. I like to take a deep breath and let go of the fear that I'm not going to measure up again this year, or I'm not going to lose the weight that I said I was going to lose last year. And you know, all those things that can keep us from moving forward. I like to open my mind to the new that's on the horizon and how it rejuvenates my soul and my goals. Recently, I've been looking at old photos, ones from 10 to 20 years ago, and one thing that stands out is how much life has changed for me. Back then, I was raising, feeding, and caring for a family of 12, and honestly, sometimes I don't know how I did it. As I take on new tasks in my current day-to-day life, I realize how much those years taught me to build schedules into my life, to find the most streamlined ways to accomplish my tasks. And back then, I'd teach those same methods to my kids so we would have a home and family that got things accomplished and had lots of time to play and learn together. I was raised by an efficient dad, and I guess I learned to be that way from him, along with being a creative with lots of outside-the-box ideas. And going back to teaching our children, Deuteronomy 6:7, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them while you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You know, that's a really good reminder. Our kids are always watching. And if they're not watching, they want to learn from us, and they're waiting. So wanting to be efficient is one of those reasons I became what I might call myself a planner connoisseur. And that's defined as one who enjoys with discrimination the appreciation of details of something. And for me, it was planners. I had always used a calendar or a planner, but I didn't always use it to plan. So let me explain how that looked. I can actually pull out of my closet a calendar, a typical wall-hanging calendar. I chose larger sizes, and on them are writings of the day, things that I had done every day for the last 40 years. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it was my way of recording and journaling what I did. But that was my extent of using a calendar. And every now and then I would get a planner and I would do the same thing. Basically, I recorded in them and didn't actually plan. You can use a calendar or planner to record events that you know you have to be at, and that's all. And we all kind of need that, whether it's on our phone or on the wall. But a planner is where you take time to work out systems and record the details of what you want to get done. So let me explain how I moved into planning. About 9 years ago, life was shifting for me, and I realized I needed to actually plan my life. The biggest change back then was that I was no longer the one responding to all the needs around me. That's a mama's life. For 30 years, my children's needs for food, love, care, and education made me more efficient every year. Now, take note of the word made. There was no choice. When you have that many people and that many babies coming along and that much homeschooling to get done and that many meals to prepare, you just have to get more organized. So, in a way, my big family created a natural schedule in our home. Maybe you can imagine the needs of a family of 12. Again, like we talked about, meals, laundry, outings, homeschool work, crafts, and for us, entrepreneurial adventures. We always had a project to work on or an adventure to go on. And I needed to be organized, but I didn't necessarily need to schedule it all out. It pretty much happened naturally, mostly from my kids needing clean clothes, getting hungry, and growing into the next phase of life. Finishing a level of a school book or needing to learn how to ride a bike. And all those little things that come on, they kind of just call us as moms to tend to the needs of our family. I didn't need to schedule when I was going to teach them how to ride a bike. The methods I developed to meet those needs organically flowed out into our days. Not always without what looked like a level of chaos to the average size family, but for us it worked. I'm not saying I didn't need to become more and more organized each year, like I didn't have to work at it. And the funny thing, a friend of mine always used to say that God gave her so many children because there was too much of her to go around, like he needed to spread her thin. But my need for really planning didn't happen until most of my kids were grown and moved out. You might wonder why, and I think I wondered it also. I realized I no longer had all those needs keeping me motivated and moving forward. A growing child waits for no one. So they were always there, kind of pushing me forward. And yes, I would develop school systems and a plan for all of our year's schoolwork and all of that. But day to day, I didn't need to have it all planned out. It just moved forward. So my new life season with less kids in the home had me wondering why in the world couldn't I get more done? Well, I had new things to do. Keeping up with our kids who were out of the home. So kind of think about this. There were family visits, both theirs and ours, that had to happen now. There were grandkids' birthdays and accomplishments, not just my own kids anymore. There were less workers at home to accomplish the same amount of decorating for holidays, birthdays, party preps, and vacations, and all the other things that happen in a home. And overall, there was a greater sense of life not being my own to manage. I now had to work with a lot of other adults who I had to fit my life into theirs if I wanted to see them. I had to fit my tasks, my work schedule, and my responsibilities into the schedules that worked with now my extended family if I wanted to see them and show them how much I value them and their family. And if you know me, you know my mottos: family first and be available. So, 9 years ago, I knew I needed a change. I felt God calling me to do better. And so I challenged myself to begin using a planner, not just to record my day's events, but to plan out what needed to get done. I needed a place to dream and brainstorm and not forget the important things. Now remember, I didn't have a lot of kids reminding me what was important. I had to figure out in my life now what was most important. And I know that sounds really unusual, but as you get older, you realize it's really what happens for us moms. And if you're in a season where you're not sure where to go, you've got a change of life, your kids are either leaving home, you're dealing with newly married children, your family life is growing and you have adjustment into how much work you can get done in your own personal work, I have a scripture for you. Proverbs 4, verses 5 through 15 says, "Get wisdom, get insight, do not forget, and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her," that's wisdom, "and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you." The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Now that's saying a lot for wisdom, and we know that God says that if any of us lacks wisdom, all we have to do is ask Him for it. And I feel like that's why my planner challenge was born. I feel God gave it to me. And I went about sharing it with a few online friends and had several of them tell me how it woke them up to the possibility of taking charge of their day and activities, of watching their responsibilities actually get accomplished, and I saw it in my life also. It literally changed my life. It helped me gain control of what felt out of control. I now had a place to record what was on my mind, on my to-do list, and on my calendar. Now, in my current season of almost empty nest, I'm not chasing toddlers or planning meals for a crew of 12, unless it's the holidays, like this year we had over 30 people for several of our family gatherings, along with 8 guests during the week between Christmas and New Year's. But I am finding that between the crazy seasons of family in our home, I need more of an artificial schedule, something that creates a deadline and a list of to-dos. No one's going to jump out at me and say, wipe me, or I need a Band-Aid anymore. I actually have to figure out what's jumping out at me that I might have overlooked as I walked by it 100 times. If the idea of gaining more control of your day excites you in any way, stay with me here. I'm going to share how fear could be what's holding you back from accomplishing your goals and dreams for your family, your home, and your life. And in a future episode, I'll share the details of how to use a planner along with my favorite tips and tricks. But today we're going to be talking about the overarching idea of how beneficial it can be. You're going to hear how I ended up creating my own planner after trying what seemed like every other planner sold. I really didn't. It just felt like it sometimes. I didn't even finish out the year with some of those planners I tried because they didn't fit my lifestyle and my needs. An example of that might be how they included budget planner pages. And in our family, my husband does the budget. So there were just these sections every month that I just felt was just a waste of space, but also a waste of money because I was paying for all those budget pages. Or they might have been designed for a woman working outside the home with very little in the way of adapting to a homemaker's needs, which is what I was. So I designed my own personal planner with places to adapt those planning boxes to fit a variety of lifestyles. And I could plug in what I needed to at any time. And another thing I should throw in there is I'm also kind of a tightwad, so I created it so I could print it up at home. And for probably $5 or $6 a year, I had my own planners. And as always, I'm going to encourage you. I want you to consider what floats your boat, to think about how you're wired so you can find a path through all your busyness and to-do lists to help you discover what style works best for you. And I'm reminding you, God wants your best, and I know you desire to give it to Him. Listen to these verses to encourage you on your path to homemaking and family raising. 1 Peter 4:10 through 11. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. And 1 Corinthians 10:31, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. And then 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. And that just reminds me, as at my season of life, as I've gone through so many different transitions and seasons, we just need to accept the new. We know this is talking about our new being as a Christian, but we also have to accept that the new has come each year, each season of our life, and we need to give it to God and serve where He wants us to. So let's get on to the meat of this topic today, fear of planning. This is one thing I need to bring up, and it's something many women deal with. How do I know this? Because it's one of my most popular blog posts, and there really is such a thing as fear of planning. So you're either thinking, oh, yay, she gets me. I have that fear. Or you're on the other side and you have no idea what I'm talking about. You love schedules, to-do lists, and all the bells and whistles of getting it all done. You can't even relate to those of us who aren't born that way. I know, I have friends like that. They just don't understand. Just like maybe I don't understand how they stay so organized and their house stays so neat. But it's really okay. And as I share about planners, I need to remember this, and it's good for you too. God made each one of us unique and with differing needs. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 helps us to remember what to do with this fear. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And Romans 12:4 says, "For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function." So we need to have patience with others and with ourselves. And then we have to remember in Romans chapter 12, verses 4 and 5, "For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them." So before we follow through on this thought and how it relates to planning, I'm really trying to help you feel comfortable in your own skin. Realize that you have a unique situation compared to mine or your friend or someone you follow on Instagram or Pinterest. We are all different. We each have differing areas of strengths and weaknesses. Like I'm a born manager and I love to do things efficiently, but if you were to look at my bedroom that I'm sitting in right now, you'd think I'm pretty messy. And that's because my brain gets full of all my ideas and thoughts and desires to do things better, and it doesn't spend time making everything neat and tidy. But that doesn't mean it's not my goal to live more simply and more tidy. I have a daughter who has a beautifully tidy, almost Pinterest-friendly home, and it makes me feel wonderful when I go over there. But it's her gift and her strength. My gift and strength is having lots of ideas and trying new arts and activities and sharing that through my writing and podcasting, and by raising kids who are eclectic and entrepreneurial and encouraging them in their unique skills. I'm just being honest here, but there are so many things I do that cause me to be less tidy in my home. But it's okay. We all don't have to look the same, and that's a really important thing to remember. The piles in my bedroom right now look like the Grand Tetons, but I know exactly what's in them and why they're there. Some are to sell on eBay. Some are gifts I've collected that need to be moved into my gift cabinet. Others are items I need to process, cull, and store. And you might walk in and think it's a mess from your perspective. But I know what the plan is, and I know I'm spending my life fully in other areas that right now matter more. Spending time with my family and giving individual attention when they come to visit, whether it's for the holidays or for the weekend, like bowling yesterday with my granddaughter for her birthday, and I'll be skiing next week in Colorado with my son and his family. It's all in the plan of what's truly important to me and our family. So don't fret being who you are and allowing that diversity to enter in between you and me or between you and a friend who runs or manages her home differently. Along with noticing what and why you're doing what you're doing, here's an important aspect to consider. Take time, actually make time to note what frustrates you. Notice what isn't going well. What makes you feel cluttered or chaotic or disorganized. Because that feeling, if you don't pay attention to it, is going to enter into your home life and relationships. It will potentially cause you to raise your voice or get annoyed or get discouraged or depressed. Take note of those things, jot them down, set some goals, and slowly chip away at them. But again, if your personality would be driven crazy by slowly chipping away at them, ask somebody to watch your kids and knock that work off in a weekend. What's funny is as I'm recording this, my first thought is there's more than one way to skin a cat. But then I'm thought, where in the world did that phrase come from? So I paused recording and looked it up. The origin is dubious. They're not exactly sure where it came from, but from 1940 1848, as they were studying phrases, skin a cat was first seen in 1845. They said that in America, any boy knows that it means to hang by the hands from a branch or bar, draw the legs up through the arms and over that branch, and pull oneself up into a sitting position. It is highly likely that Ben Franklin or earlier American lads had the same name for it. Other writers have pointed to its use in the southern states as a reference to catfish, often abbreviated to cat, a fish that is indeed usually skinned in preparing it for eating. I like that one a little bit better. And then Mark Twain, he used a version of it in a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court in 1889. And then in 1879, there was confirmation from the Leisure Hour, a publication, that cats were used for women's furs, but with the denial that they were ever skinned alive. Quote, to skin a cat when it was alive would be utterly impossible. And secondly, it does not make any difference in the quality of the skin. End of quotes. Wow. So now we're a little more educated, but I honestly don't know why I came up with that phrase. But there you go, a history lesson. So let's get back to planning. One thing we know for sure, and I think it needs to be highlighted if we're going to be talking about planning or anything else we do in our Titus 2 homes, is God calls us to imitate him. And this verse, 1 Corinthians 14:40, says it best when it comes to managing our home and our life. It says, do all things decently and in order. And it hits a sweet spot for me. I have fond memories of it being the first verse that our family memorized together as we began home educating decades ago. I still quote it often when I find my home kind of digressing into the messes of holidays and other projects and activities. Again, it reminds us we're really not to be flying by the seat of our pants. And if you want to learn about where that phrase comes from, you can head back to episode number 8, where I discuss developing a family mission statement. I know you'll like that episode for setting a course for your family. We're clear that God created a multitude of personalities, and with each of those, we know their strengths and weaknesses. But here's where one particular weakness enters into planning, and it's fear. The fear of planning. And if that still confuses you, stop and think about what planning actually entails. It requires us to make a choice and stick with it. We need to list out what needs to get done and when we want it to get done by. Now, compare that if you have a personality that would like to live more like a free bird and soar wherever the wind blows. Well, as much as you'll hear me talk about being a free bird, here's a verse I need not forget. Galatians 3:28, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. So yeah, that's me, and that's you. And yet, as much as I want to be completely free, I'm always a slave to Christ. And that means tuning my ears to his call, his commands. And one of those is to do things orderly, to manage my home well, to love my husband and my kids. And there's Titus 2 all over again. God chose to give me 10 kids. A very busy life of home educating them along with friends that over the years showed us the benefits of more of a homestead lifestyle. But that doesn't just all happen on its own. Each day came with lots of necessary to-dos, not a lot of free flying, unless I wanted a messy home, hungry kids, and more clothes in hampers than in drawers. The fear of planning, for me, needed to fly out the window along with much of my free-flying desires. I needed to get organized so I'd feel better about myself and what I was accomplishing each day. Like I said before, I did it organically, kind of by trial and error. I didn't use a planner back then. Proverbs 16:9 reminds us why planning is a good thing. The mind of a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. That, in essence, reminds us what our job is. The mind of a man does want to plan. We do want to set a course for our goals. And because God wants us to do things decently and in order, it's obvious that that's a good thing, but always with the knowledge that God's in charge. God is so amazing in how He changes our course and He grows our character in the process. Let me share with you about where this fear comes from that I'm talking about. You can find all the details on my blog post, Fear of Planning, It's a Real Thing. I'll share the link in the show notes. First off, are you relieved by this title, or are you a bit confused? If you're a planning ninja, did you even know there's such a thing as fear of planning? Or do you know this feeling, the one when you're about to fill out your planner for the week and you're gripped with panic, the fear that comes from not knowing what to put on your to-do list? Or you feel the tension of putting something on the wrong day, risking it won't get done, and the sense of failure when things don't get done again. Teleophobia, it's the unreasonable or irrational fear of making definite plans, and it may also extend to the fear of religious rituals such as weddings, funerals, and Sunday services. And that is seemingly related to a fear of losing control and is similar to the fear of confinement or of making commitments. The person feels restricted or tied down by other people's agendas. Now, you might think I'm pulling your leg, but decidophobia is also a real term. It's used to define the irrational fear of making decisions. You can easily see how these phobias could cause a fear of making plans or the fear of using a planner. And I hate to admit it, I know too well what this fear feels like. After reading these two articles, I realized my husband and I have both of these to a degree. Hard to admit, but it's still very true. I've always hesitated to move forward in my plans. I know it's my hyper-responsible tendency to want to do the right thing, of not wanting anything to go wrong in my sphere of responsibility. My husband and I have made some, how shall I say this politely, some less than great decisions and ones we weren't ready for. We bombed in our indecision or our lack of preparation, and needless to say, those created a fear of making more mistakes, and so our teleophobia was nurtured. You see, this is something hugely important. You can feed your insecurities and fears, or you can seek help and find tools to help you overcome them. Right now I'm reading John Acuff's book, Soundtracks, and it's about rewiring your brain to listen to different music, different repetitive comments you tell yourself. If you deal with any number of soundtracks telling you you can't, I suggest reading this book. And it's why I'm doing this episode. I want you to find freedom to make plans and see the growth and productivity that comes from it. And the only way through the struggle is through the struggle. Almost 9 years ago, I committed to a year of planning. I created my own planner challenge, and I've come a long way in overcoming my fear of setting things down on paper, risking not getting them done, making decisions to move forward in spite of the full-on fear that I might not succeed. And you know what? After living out my planner challenge, it's gotten much easier to go with the flow and just get things done. In the show notes, you're going to find links to several posts, along with one on how to come up with a personal planner challenge for yourself. And if you feel a hint of fear when it comes to planning, or if this excites you or gives you hope, keep listening to learn how thinking through your fear of planning can help you move forward to what matters most in your life. Let me share how this year, 2024, didn't start with a bang. We finally got Christmas put away last week, and we're over halfway through January. Yes, we took our time, but circumstances slowed us way down as our family and extended family all got the virus RSV. And I wanted to enjoy the twinkling lights after all the busyness of Christmas. While all I wanted to do is start running into the new year, I also needed some rest. Time has taught me to be okay with the slowdowns, of plans not going my way. I'm trying to get the best out of every situation, but it has taken me years to figure that out. And the older I get, the more I know the secret of being content. The key is knowing I'm not in control. Philippians 2, verse 13 says, "It is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure." You know, our culture tells us to be your own boss and you can have everything. Yet you and I know we aren't really in control at all. God is. You and I have limitations. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble. But don't be discouraged. Each day you have more control than you want, just not total control. You have to begin to find your sweet spot. Then you'll see some level of success. You'll learn to get comfortable with not getting it all done. Just start. 3 things to remember. 1, you have control over what you add to your to-do list and onto your schedule. You don't have to put everything down on your planner. Start with the little things you know will help you succeed. Make it winnable. Number 2, you have control over how you handle the multitude of responsibilities in your sphere of influence. Your home or life doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You be you. Take one small step in an area you want to take control of. Write it down. Really, go ahead. Make it a goal to get that one thing accomplished this day or this week. Then see how that feels. Use it to motivate you on to the next area. And number 3, you have control over how you handle what doesn't go your way. Make it your aim to be okay with not getting some things done. But don't get lazy. Simply accept the fact that you're learning and growing each day. Make a half step toward that goal tomorrow. You can do it. I know you can. When you get a bit of insight into how this works and letting yourself be okay with some discomfort in the planning, press on. Look at your successes, even the little ones. Here's 4 ways to look at those successes. Number 1, be encouraged by the possibility of finishing a task or a goal. Push away the fear of failure. Imagine it leaving the room. And then pray for God to give you strength to persevere. Number 2, get excited to begin the year running, or the end of the year running, or skip through your summer. Just get moving. I did this when I began my planner challenge. I had to picture getting things done. I had to stop being afraid to add a task to my planner. I got motivated by the idea of completing the challenge, and it worked. And here I am 9 years later. Number 3, don't be afraid to have lots of goals. Create a brainstorm list of all the things you'd love to accomplish. I added a whole page to record thoughts every month in my planner. I use this throughout the month to pick and choose what's realistic. Writing them down can help you realize you aren't crazy, you're just creative and human. Remember, you were created in God's image, and He's an awesome God who created the entire universe. It's okay to have lots of ideas. And number 4, don't expect your plan to go exactly the way you pictured. When you wrote in those little boxes in your planner, they weren't set in stone. Really, it's okay. Allow for reality and flexibility in your plan. Remember the human element you're dealing with. You're not perfect, nor can you perfectly plan for everything that happens in a day or a week or a year. Take a deep breath in. Now exhale all the stress and fear out. Give it to God. Then move on in faith and peace. You can do this one step at a time. And remember these verses when you're beginning to fret. Luke 1:37, for nothing will be impossible with God. And 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your anxieties on Him because He cares for you. So my recommendation to you, sit down and list out what needs to get done. See how it can fit in your day, and don't stress about all the details. Focus on the real and current needs in your home and life. Face your fears. Ask yourself what has you all wadded up in a ball. Now unroll that ball and see what's at the core. Now, I'm a night person, so I like to stay up a little after everyone else heads to bed. I feel better that way, getting some things done, rather than waiting till the morning when my family's awake and might need me. And I realized recently I do better reading and planning because in the morning I feel like I should do more real stuff. I still get my Bible time and reading in the morning, but for some reason I find it hard to relax when the day gets started. So this night routine works for me. But I encourage you to take time to develop your own routine. Find time slots that keep you on track, like do these things before breakfast, or do these things before lunch, or do these things before dinner or bedtime. Having these blocks of time really helped me when I had a busy household to run because I'm not much of a tight schedule person. Some people love having each activity by the hour in their planner, detail by detail, day by day. But that's not something that works for me. I like flexibility, and my family structure calls for more flexibility. That type of schedule kind of drives me crazy because I'm having to change things around all the time. And so in a way, it kind of makes me feel like I've failed my plan. But again, we need to find what works for us. And here's another thing that I found really interesting. This week, I just found something I'm really liking. It's called a habits list. And I don't know if you know planners. Do you know those annoying little bubbles at the bottom of the planner? The ones that lay out across the page in 30 bubbles, the ones you check off when you've hydrated for the day or worked out? Well, they always frustrated me because to me, they're so limiting. Why did they always talk about drinking water? But this month, I had one of those aha moments. While I'm finishing up the edits on my planner, and it's already January, I needed to get a planner out, and I didn't have my own planner printed up yet. So I got out a $5 planner that I bought online last year for an emergency such as this, and guess what it had? Yeah, it had a habit tracker at the bottom. But this one was really smart. It had a blank space under the title Habit. Call me silly, but this time it was like a lightning bolt. It struck me that I could write down things I want to do daily or 3 times a week, like work on my planner edits, or edit my podcast, or give away 10 things, or work on my simplifying course. Well, all the things I usually write on my goals list, kind of a list for the week, well, these are the ones that I get to when I have time. But now I can see them differently. I can jot them down in a list under my habit tracker, and instead of using my normal list to develop a habit, even though I guess it kind of already had developed a habit, this way I can look at it as something to check off each day, or I draw a slash if I didn't work on it that day. But by the end of the week, I can see the progress I'm making. Instead of just listing it out as something to do all week long, I can actually have a place to record how much I did of it. So I'm going to be adding those bubbles somewhere in my new planner. Picture this. You know how discouraging it is when you have a great plan underway, but then something like your cat gets hurt and now you have to go to the vet, or you get a flat tire, or the dishwasher backs up just as you were planning to get your thank you notes written, or finally have time to clean out the closets, or in my case, put away my gifts into my gift cabinet, or create a business plan. Or like we did this year, just ask my family about how I croaked out my words for the entire Christmas day. You know, you can't be silent on Christmas Day when you're passing out gifts and there's 30 people all hanging around you and wanting to talk to you. It was not a pretty picture, and I'm thinking now I should have handed out earplugs. But life happens. But here's the thing. Because we live in a more complicated world than we used to, there's just so many distractions and so many opportunities. It's really important to know what you need to do every day. And to know that, you need a plan. It's really going to help you. And that starts with having goals. Go back to that episode 8 on mission statements, and you'll be able to set some really good goals for yourself and your family. Then, to turn those goals into reality, you need to list out the necessary tasks. I once heard it said, and this was a really good example, there was a woman that somebody asked her biggest frustration, and she said, I just want to hang a painting on my wall. And somebody said, well, why aren't you hanging it? And she said, well, I don't have a tape measure. I know that I need to get a tape measure in order to measure out the distance between the corner of the wall and where I want it. And then the other person said, well, why don't you get a tape measure? And she said, I don't own one. So his recommendation was, don't put on your list, hang the picture, put on your list, buy a tape measure. And do you know, I heard that years ago. I still use it as an example when my husband and I are in kind of one of our stalemates and we're like, wait a minute, maybe we just need to buy a tape measure. So figure out which tasks are the most important or which tasks are holding you back and list those out. And then to get those tasks done, they need to go somewhere, like on a planner or on a calendar, preferably on a specific day or week, or a Post-it note that you can move from one day to the next. It's simply the rules of the game in our busy world these days. One thing to consider, and I consider it a fact of life, you're going to see things get bumped on your schedule, and often. And what matters most isn't that they got bumped, but it's how you deal with those bumps. Actually, when things don't go your way, your response is really telling you, it's giving you a hint of what's important to you, of what matters most to you. And it's important to see what's really behind your actions. Take time to answer these next questions. You'll find them in the show notes, and I'll give you a little pause just to think about them. When I'm frustrated with my messed up plan, does it reveal that I want a perfect schedule over a practical one? When I'm frustrated with my messed up plan, could it be that I want things to go my way and not someone else's? When I'm frustrated with my messed up plan, is it because I want to be more like blank than who I am right now? Fill in that blank with the name of someone you value or even secretly idolize. When I'm frustrated with my messed up plan, maybe I'm thinking that life should look one way when actually God wants me to evaluate what's most important in my life. And it might not be that perfect Pinterest bedroom. I'll give you a few seconds to think through those. I'll share the numbered list that I gave you and those questions in the show notes. The most important factor of planning, fear of planning, setting your intentions, and being okay with how it all ends up is be flexible, don't stress, but plan anyway. Have you ever thought about how the explorers, the scientists, and the inventors from years past did what they did? And the ones that are now doing what they're doing? How do they make headway one day only to have their plans disrupted the next? How do they keep going? The key is they do keep going. They don't let that stop them. Envisioning a better day, a better life, a healthy relationship will move you forward. You're like those explorers, but you're exploring your own life and where you're headed. And even if it doesn't turn out exactly how you planned or on your imagined timetable, you are still moving forward. And that's so much better than standing still. So stay the course. I shared a little bit about how my holiday went and where I'm at right now, but let me share a little bit about my planning this month. I had one goal for this past holiday season, and that was to enjoy the month celebrating with family and friends. I'll share a little secret. I was so busy prepping for gifts and podcast episodes that I completely forgot to make a meal plan. I only have one daughter at home, and she had a bunch of other things on her list to do, and we just forgot. So here we were without a meal plan, and the day that my son and his new wife arrived, my daughter and I were still prepping rooms and making beds. But you know what? It all worked out in the end. Meals were enjoyed, some frozen food was used up, and we had a Panda Express night that made us feel warm and relaxed. And no one ended up sleeping without blankets or pillows. It all worked out. Each party and person was enjoyed to the fullest. So in the end, it was a win. The things I could have let get to me, stress me out, or make me lose my joy, they just didn't. And that, my friends, is why I share with you today. I want a stress-less life for you. It will take work. It will require that you trust and move forward anyway. But it's well worth it Really, it is. So in closing, my encouragement for you is this. Don't let the fear of planning stop you. Failure to meet all your shoulds and your goals is okay. Use what didn't work to fuel you, not stall you. Test things and be okay to try something else. And lastly, look for the wins. Review your year and find the wins. They're there. You just have to put on your binoculars. You'll see them. And finding those wins is going to motivate you to move forward this year. I can't wait for you to see all you can get done. And I have something in the works, and I'm excited about it for myself, but also for you, because I have yet to find the perfect planner, and I've tried dozens. I took the time several years ago to start creating my own. It was for me. I could make it personal. I slowly have made it better and better, and it really meets my needs at this point, and I'm hoping it could meet yours too. At the start of each month, you'll find planning pages to encourage you to dream a bit, to set aside time to look at reality, to review your past months to see how well you did, and to ponder what you might want to get done or what solutions you could come up with to do better next month. I use it every day. I'm working on the final edits. It'll be uploaded to Amazon in the next few weeks, and you'll find it there. And I will be sharing on Instagram, Facebook, and in my newsletter when that goes live. You can check back here for the link, or you can search Amazon for the Think, Pray, Plan, Do planner from Living Above the Noise. I'll keep you posted, and you can let me know what you think. For more inspiration, I have posts on my website. One is called Choosing a Planner, So Many Options. Another one is 3 Steps to Stop the Chaos, Why You Need a Plan. And another one, You Need a Plan for the Perfect Day. Most of all, I pray that your year produces joy and success in your way and your timing. If this episode encouraged you, please be sure to follow wherever you listen in. That way you won't miss another episode. And please share it with someone you know who might need a lift. If you have any questions, you can contact me on Instagram or Facebook, and you can subscribe to my every so often newsletter at the link at livingabovethenoise.com or in the link that I'll post in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening in today. I hope it inspired you. I hope it eased a little bit of the fear you might have in planning for your year or your month or your week. And most importantly, I hope you're not afraid to get out a blank piece of paper or that planner that's sitting on your desk or a calendar and start thinking about what you'd like to accomplish this year, this month, this week, or even just today. You've got this.